Do we think creativity is at a slowdown? Are we hitting that the peak of the curve? Or is originality and creativity, are we slowing down? Is it saturated? What's the deal? Because I
So, what?
because I see, and the reason why I ask this is because obviously, if you listen to the radio or if you
Yeah,
listen to music, you watch movies, then you'll everybody sees like remakes coming out. Everybody will
yeah,
see, just generally overused ideas or reused ideas. So, this is a question that goes out to everybody:
yeah.
is originality dead, dying, or has it slowed down, or is it amping up? What
I
are your
feel like
thoughts?
honestly, like with our generation and where we are now, with people that are like 20s to 30s, I feel like this is like the kind of like I'm not worst kind of time, but like it is definitely to where when you're a kid, everything's new, so everything's so fresh, and you're
Right.
like, oh, cool, like check this out. But then like we're just hitting that point to where like we've kind of seen like quote unquote everything. So everything starts to be a little bit more redundant now. It's like, okay, I've seen, and this is what I personally don't like. I mean, I know that people are going to get on to me about this one, but I personally do not like superhero movies, like Marvel movies, whatever, because they tend to be a little more cookie cutter-ish. I'm not saying
Right.
every Marvel movie is, but you take most of them except for the Dark Knight. That one's a good one. But like they take this cookie cutter approach to where it's like, here's this nerdy kid or here's this whoever, and this is how they get a power, and this is the short time frame where they're messing around with their new power, and then guess what, there's an enemy, and then after that this is like why they're the enemy, then they start fighting, and then oh the bad guys lose, or like the good guys losing, oh no no, but through the power of love and friendship we beat them, and then guess what, there's an after credit scene showing another bad guy. Whoa, never seen that before. Like
Well, that's the thing. So that's the reason why I asked this, because
yeah,
it seems as though that we have identified the architects
yeah,
of what makes up a
yeah,
superhero. We've
yeah,
identified the architects of what storytelling is. So now we know that we have architects for basic storytelling. So we
yeah.
know that there's the adventure story, there is the discovery story, there is like I know there's like a list, and I don't really have
Yeah,
uh
yeah, definitely. Core ones, whatever.
yeah, I know there's like basic like five, like I think there's five like basic categories for storytelling. Like there's the romance novel. I don't remember what they are, but I'll have to look them up later.
Yeah,
Um, but almost every story that we've come up with has fallen into those categories some
yeah.
way or another, and so we've developed these archetypes or archetypes for
Archetypes.
these characters that we tell these stories about. My
Yeah,
mom, Gina, my mom says, slowed down. Most people followed whatever is in the latest trend. That's the other thing. I think people do follow what's in the trend because it's
yeah,
the quickest, easiest way to get popular.
yeah.
So that's another issue.
Also, people are influenced by other people, so you take this person who's influenced by this person who's influenced by this one. Like it tends to be very kind of like linear to where you tend to get a lot of this same stories happening a lot of time. Even with music too, like there's only so many ways. Like it. I mean, as a songwriter myself, like I guess it's kind of weird for me to say it, but like a lot of music tends to be very similar to where you don't want to, most of the time you do write music with the listener in mind, so you don't want to, I mean, like like yeah, you write music for yourself as well, but like if you want to write music that other people are gonna like listen to, you want to follow a certain pattern. You don't want to like throw the listener for too big of a loop, because or else it's very daunting, and it like people get turned off by it. So a lot of times, like with like really crazy like time signatures or like key changes or anything, they like people are just will be like, oh man, this sounds weird, or like I don't really like this.
Right.
Get too experimental with it.
Well, the thing is, I know that there have been a lot of issues with copyright in the music industry lately. I know Ed Sheeran got hit or something like that, maybe like 2 years ago. But the problem being is there's only 12 notes in music.
Yeah.
So there are only a specific number of combinations of those 12 notes that you can actually make. So
Yeah.
I do think that there's a limit on what we can do, but have we hit that limit? And where is that limit? Where do we go once we find that limit?
Yeah.
So
It's
I don't know. So
Yeah, it's definitely like a weird kind of like position too, because like you can always come out with new stuff. Like I guarantee you, like the newest song that we came out with, there's nothing exactly like it, but there are definitely things that will, you can be reminded of, like, oh, that reminds me of this, or that reminds me of that.
right.
So,
I mean,
but
everything's built on the ideas are built on top of each other.
yeah,
That's why I find it so fascinating. Before we had technology and before we had social media, before we had the internet, especially,
yeah,
how how influential creativity actually was. So someone like Jimi Hendrix, and I've talked about this on the podcast before,
yeah,
there wasn't really a style like his before
yeah,
he kind of came out and developed that style, and like he was a game changer.
yeah, hmm,
I mean, and we can even go into the sciences and talk about Newton or especially Newton.
yeah,
Like the dude developed calculus.
yeah,
Like what? How do you
yeah,
just develop a whole math?
yeah.
That's crazy. And
Yeah.
that is not only that is not only creativity,
Yeah,
but that's also logic. Like, and there's some sort of logic that sort of underlays that creative process. I mean, the man was a genius, hands down.
yeah,
Nikola Tesla, the guy that is responsible for the reason why we're able to communicate through these like
devices.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, these people didn't have these ideas presented to them beforehand. I mean, I definitely think that was a wave of creativity, and there are those revolutionary ideas. But I think with everything being so saturated now with the internet, I think we've kind of slowed down on that.
yeah,
The other thing is I'm reading a lot about priming in my social psychology class and what priming does to humans. And what priming basically is it takes away from your creative juices as well as automatically stimulating you with some sort of other idea. So if I ask you to name a color or something,
yeah,
then I could prime you. I could prime you with specific colors. Like I could have said that you said aquamarine because of the background right here.
oh yeah,
I could have said that because there were priming factors. There was actually an interesting study done with
yeah,
patients who let me see if I can get this right. Basically, scientists were trying to review whether or not a certain set of words would prime you into doing the right or wrong thing. So basically, they gave participants 10 $1 coins, and they told the participants that the coins were theirs and they could do whatever they want with them.
Yeah.
They could share them with the next person if they wanted to. And actually, it was encouraged to share it with the next person. So before they even gave them those coins, though, they primed them with a sentence. They primed them to create a sentence out of a list of words, and the words were, "She eradicate felt and spirit." And they were asked to form a sentence out of just those words. And basically, the people that formed the sentence, "She felt the spirit," were more likely to give more coins to other people.
Okay.
So they primed the other person to think about religion. They primed them to think about God, and they primed them to think in a positive way, so that way their actions would reflect that sentence that they created.
Yeah, definitely.
So priming in itself, I think, and I know this is a confusing topic, but I'm trying to get back to creativity, and I think that priming with all the saturation on the internet and seeing what we have has actually inhibited us from being creative. So there's so much that we have online that we can see and we can take in, we can absorb, but it's really hard to kind of sidestep all that and create something incredibly individualistic and creative. So
Definitely.
I think with the saturation of the internet, it's made it hard to be creative.
Yeah, because I'd say like even on small scales of priming, like when people say like name a number 1 through 10, typically like a majority of people will say 7 because of lucky number 7 or whatever. Or like even with like a magic trick, like you take like a deck of cards and like you unfold it to where like there's one that like goes a little bit closer to the person, so they'll like take that like certain card that you
Right.
you know. So that all kind of like goes into the concept of priming, but like yeah, definitely like I feel like this is why creative people and like creative fields is just like it's so challenging because you have to be like a pioneer, like a trailblazer to succeed at these things. You have to be willing to take risks, and you have to be willing to just do stuff that's outside of the norm without like the repercussions of like, oh, I'm not really feeling that, or like that doesn't like really sound good, or like, and I could say even like, I don't know, I'm not like a chef, but to try to relate like,
Going to
creativity.
test this theory tomorrow.
Yeah,
Dell.
but like with say like you're a chef and you're trying to like make a new dish, or you're trying to be creative with it, like yeah, you still have all the same ingredients, but like you have some people that all they eat is chicken nuggets and cheese sticks and stuff, so like they're not gonna like the exquisite flavor you're gonna put in front of them, so like that's
Right.
another too.
Well, again, one of the sad aspects of being creative, and I think that this kind of plays into the fact of what we're saying, is most creative people tend to be isolated. They tend to be the people that, forge their own path, and they're the people that are sort of alone.
Yeah.
So they focus on that originality aspect, isolated from other content, because they want to be able to create the next big thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've watched a lot of Jordan Peterson, and he kind of explains. My dog in the background. Great question with good thought process. Oh, mommy. That's my mom, guys. She has to say that. She's required to say that. But anyways, I think it's Jordan Peterson talks about the fact that most creative people, it's like a gift and a curse at the same time, where these creative people are so daunted with this overwhelming task to be original that it kind of can become lonely.
Yeah.
So.
And also, you feel like if you're not creating something original, that like you're more or less like failing at what you do. But like it is so challenging because like you have these ingredients that you use as well. We're limited by our minds to what we can imagine and what we can put together.
Well, I told you guys, I remember having a conversation with you and Drew a long time ago, and I think we were sitting on your bed, and I was like, you know what, the one thing I really want to accomplish is to leave like one original idea, if I could, like one good original idea before I go. That would be like a blessing, because that's what I'm motivated to do, is just have that one original idea that could help change the world. That's just revolutionary, and people are like, dang, that's original.
You're talking about like an idea rather than like a...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like an invention. It doesn't have to be anything. I'm talking about like an idea. Like I'm talking about like whether it's a philosophy or whatever, just something that's revolutionary and something that's an original idea, because that is so hard to come by.
Yeah.
Original thinking and original ideas are so complicated, and I think people overestimate their ability to be original.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's like, it's one of those things to where like, how do you then like promote that too? Like, let's say you even do that. Like, how do you expose other people to that? And
my microphone or Kayla's microphone? I think your microphone's fine. I can hear you, and I get good feedback. I think it's mine.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, no, it's mine. It's because I'm not talking like directly into it. So, but anyways, what were you saying? What were you saying?
I would like how to like kind of like promote that with other people, and how to get other people to recognize too that that is a complete like original good idea. Because you get like honestly, you could come up with something that's like really good and really innovative, but then you try to tell somebody else, and then they might not understand it, or like it just might be something that's not well received. You know,
Mine. Oh, it should be better. Like I'm getting, like I don't want to overpower it because it's like going into the yellow and then almost hitting red. So I'll keep it where it's at.
yeah.
Blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay, keep going.
But yeah, so I don't know, like what else about like creativity? All I know is just like it's something that's difficult, and honestly, another thing too is some people don't give themselves credit,
Yeah.
and a lot of people you'll meet so many people that are just like, oh, I'm not a creative person, and I'm not whatever. It's just like I think that they just haven't put their foot forward in the creativity realm, or it might be just not something that they're um maybe just something that they haven't found yet, really. Because I could say I'm like, even though like you can be creative with like music, but like I don't know how creative I'd be with gardening or something else, you know. So it's kind of like finding that one passion that you can be creative with.
Yeah, where do the juices flow? I've actually had this talk with Dell. What is the path of least resistance? And this goes to what motivates you, not even just to creativity, but what is the path to least resistance? Like, how are you gonna better yourself? Like, how are you gonna be better? Like, how are you going to find what your niche is in life? And
Yeah.
how do you do that? And so we had a conversation about finding what you want to do, and what's the path of least resistance. And sometimes there's going to be fight back, in your own internal struggle with accomplishing tasks, because everybody gets down on certain things, and there are tasks even outside of whatever is the path of least resistance that you need to focus on that are in the way. So sometimes there are those tasks that are like that, but in general, you kind of want to find what your niche is. What is the path of least resistance?
Yeah. Like path of least resistance for like each individual. Like,
yeah. I remember we had a conversation one time. We were at my old apartment, and we were walking Stark.
oh
and
yeah, that's
you
right.
and I were talking about it, and we were talking about what, like in a
Ideal society, I think it was.
like in a perfect world, how would in a perfect governing world in today's society, like how could people actually create a utopia? Like, what would be a utopia? What would that look like? And you actually said one of the best answers I'd ever gotten from that, and you were like, well, everybody would have to have a purpose, and like everybody would have to be able to live out that purpose and feel purposeful.
Yes.
And so I was like, that makes total sense, because if everybody has a purpose, then they would obviously do what they would want to do, and they wouldn't want to neglect on certain choices. So I thought that was a really interesting answer.
And it was to elaborate on that. It was just kind of like saying like if you're a person like you're say like person X is like they are a baker and that's what their purpose is like, and that's what they love is they love baking things and they love coming out with new cakes and new flavors and stuff. Then they'll come out with the craziest, coolest stuff, and like it would in that utopian society, like you could just share it with people because you'd be getting ingredients, you'd be getting whatever, and then like you'd have another person who is a game developer that just comes out with all these like really cool, crazy games.
Just
and,
wants to share it. Yeah.
Nobody has to like worry about like going hungry or anything. But then like you kind of cross into that territory of like when does that utopian society become like
Dystopian.
yeah,